I grew up on this farm, and by the time I was 5 years old, I came back from school. I had an amazing teacher in school. She was a lovely lady. I'll never forget it because we were learning all kinds of grafting, and we had a small garden, and we were learning how to make sugar from sugar beets, even. Like, we're doing all these really cool experiments in the class, and we had our own little garden. And so I came home from school and I told my parents, "Hey, I'm gonna start gardening. Like, I want a piece of the garden to start like growing food," because our farm at the time was mostly cash crops and cattle, not much, and that's cash crops are like grains, so not much vegetable growing. And after several times of asking my parents, because they were having very busy jobs starting their business, they said, "Okay, you know what? Here's a little piece in the garden. Just leave us alone and go do your thing." And for some odd reason, I started with growing radishes. I think I actually was my grandfather who recommended to do that because he was a great vegetable gardener as well. And so I started with radishes, and Daniel, it's so fun to grow radishes because it's very fast. Within 4 to 6 weeks, you can have your own radishes. So it's a really simple way to grow your own food. So I had my first early success in life because I still remember it clearly as one of the most beautiful things ever, that I harvested my own radishes and I could give them to my mom, and we had like a salad that in the summer, and I was so proud of myself. Like, I could grow my own food. This is amazing. And then I thought, like, how difficult can it be? So I went on to now grow all kinds of other stuff, tomatoes, lettuces. I got some seeds from my dad, and I just spread everything in the garden, thinking like, oh, that's super easy. I'll come back in a few weeks. And at that time, I was very busy on the farm because I was building a camp in the woods. I also started my egg business because I had 12 chicken, and I was collecting my eggs every day and selling them. So I had this early um, joy of entrepreneurship. I really enjoyed it.
How old were you
Uh,
then?
I was 6 when I started my egg business. Uh, and I loved doing that. But so around the time I was, yeah, 5, 6, and then Daniel, I came back several weeks later to my garden, accepting like it's going to be full of lettuce, carrots, everything that I want. But you already feel what's coming next. I came back and my garden was overgrown by weeds that were taller than myself,
Hmm.
ugly looking weeds that looked very dangerous, and I was devastated. Like, I couldn't understand why did this happen, what, and these all these questions arose. And in my whole life I always was very intrigued by understanding how things work. Like, even my sisters, they had all kinds of toys, like small washing machines as like a kid's toy, and I would have to break it open to understand the mechanic, like how mechanically it works. I wasn't really good at putting it together again at that time, but I wanted to understand how things work. So the same with nature. I went on in life. I studied economics, and then I did a bachelor in landscape architecture. I got my master degree in landscape architecture for bigger projects. And even in my formal education, we never really understood like how does nature actually work. So then I went on and I did a bunch of trainings, permaculture, educating myself, watching YouTube videos, and I started to really understand how nature works. And I put all that knowledge into my book, which is 12 Universal Laws of Nature, that won an award. And from that experience, I was,
Well, okay, we'll come back to after you finish with your story, the 12 laws. I'm curious how you broke it down, what these laws are. So we'll cover, remind me to ask you or come back to 12 laws.
yes, yeah, we'll go back to that because there's some interesting things I want to share around that. But so I got my master degree as an engineer in landscape architecture, and I did what people expected from me was to get a suitcase and become like a office suitcase and go into a 9 to 5 job. And I did that for 2.5 years. And after I think after 6 months, I was getting pretty depressed because the 9 to 5 system, it was also in Germany, which is a great country because the engineering is really of a high level. So at the same time, I learned a lot, but I was so stuck in that 9 to 5 system, thinking like, why this is not why I've been put on this planet. So after doing that for 2.5 years, I said, you know what, I'm going to quit my job. I had a few thousand euros or dollars saved up. And I decided to pack my backpack and go out into the world and go volunteer and visit and work on projects all across the world that have to do with sustainable farming, ecotourism, gardening, people and other businesses of people that are actually doing something great for the planet. So that was a very rich experience of 1.5 years. And I don't have to lie, I also enjoyed it. Like, I love surfing, so I went to a lot of places on the world that I could catch some amazing waves. That's one of my other passions. But then, Daniel, this was a pivotal moment. I went into the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador. I had been traveling for 1.5 years. I just decided I love this lifestyle. I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I can. But then Mother Nature or God or whatever you want to believe in had another plan for me because I went into the Amazon rainforest and I had one of the deepest experiences with the connection with nature, like how crazy it is that we're living on this beautiful planet and that there's such rich diversity of nature. And I had a lot of insights like, damn, we have to protect this like this planet is so precious. And I was guided by an amazing guide who's an indigenous, and he had worked for National Geographic. There's a lot of fate happened in that moment how I met him, but I was with him for 3 days and we saw so much things. Like, we saw dolphins, 10 types of monkeys. We even saw a tapir, and a tapir is like a really small elephant with a short nose, which is extremely rare to see. Which, like, there's even very little photos of that animals, and we were able to. I wasn't able to see it, but I could hear it, and the guide said he had seen it. So all of these crazy things, as if nature was kind of showing to me how beautiful it is. But it's also a very hostile environment for humans, if at least if you're not from there, if you're not an indigenous. So what happened next is that I got stung by a mosquito that had a tropical disease called dengue fever. So dengue is a very dangerous disease. People can die from it, and I became really sick. For the next 6 weeks, I was completely ill all the time. I had to go to hospital. They couldn't do much. I was in good hands, but I lost a lot of weight. And honestly, from that moment on, Daniel, my whole life went south. Like, my girlfriend dumped me. I didn't have any more money to travel. I had to come back to my home country, live with my parents. And that was kind of my deepest moment in my life. And I can say it now in retrospect, but that was actually the biggest gift I've ever had in my life because I started to ask deeper questions like, why am I here? What am I doing here? And from that experience, I said, you know what? I have nothing to lose. I really want to make an impact of the world, in the world, not just by doing a little bit of gardens or help or working for another company, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I had a bigger mission. I wanted to make sure that this beautiful planet that we have, that many generations to come can still live that and have that same experience of having fresh water, clean air, and all the other benefits of having nature in our lives. So I said, okay, how can I do that? We look at NGOs or even advocacies or people that are like striking or all these things, let's say climate riots against to actually make change. None of that has made much change. In fact, since the 60s, we've
Yeah,
known
good
it.
point. Yeah.
And again, I'm not against people that are advocates and that are doing NGO work. They should keep doing it. It's really important. But for me, I was like, it's clearly not working good enough or fast enough. So, and then if you,
Profit like an NGO is a nonprofit.
yes, exactly. And again, I'm not against NGOs, far from it. But I just kind of started to look like what is actually changing the world, and it's real entrepreneurship. Businesses change the world. You could say for the better, for the good, for the worse, but at least that's what is really changing the world. It's not politics. Governments are not like the invention of governments were not to change the world. It's to control and to guide all those things. But the government is not there to change the world. And far too often we complain about governments that they're not doing enough, da da da. But it's not their responsibility to change the world. It's the business owners and the people.
You're supposed to have freedom, freedom to
We do
choose.
have to, yeah, that freedom, that's another, I fully agree with you. That's another, we have to be able to move freely within the realms of, let's say, of the rules of a game, you know? but now it's very hard to play the game. That's true as well. But that's maybe a whole other discussion. So, but I decided, okay, I'm gonna start my business because there I can make changes. And I started with making garden designs for people because that's what I knew. And within four, which is now we're close to 5 years in business. Now we have clients in four continents. I have, I do one-on-one work for people to have beautiful gardens, but also ecological. And in fact, some people think like, why would I want an ecological garden and also a beautiful garden? It seems like it's not matching. At the same time, is it going to be more expensive or even more maintenance? Well, as it turns out, the more natural you make your garden, the easier it is to maintain it, the lower the budget you need. You do need to think more, you need to put a little bit more time in planning it. So that's what I've done for a bunch of clients all over the world. And then I also started a masterclass list because some people reach out to me, hey, I don't want your expertise that you do it for me or that you do it with contractors and everything. I actually want to make my hands dirty and do it myself. So from that, it was actually a client who asked me, I said, okay, you know what? In the next 9 weeks, I'm going to teach you everything that I know. I'll get to the essence. I'll remove all the crap that I learned over the last 10 years, and I'll give you like the actual knowledge that works and gets you the results. And that was the birth of the Garden of Your Dreams masterclass, which is now becoming increasingly popular because I feel there's an urge for people to do a lot of work themselves. And then we're now also I moved to the Azores because I came here for a client and I just love the island. It's so beautiful here. At the same time, I'm close to the US and to Europe, so I can be in two sites relatively fast. And we're doing work with developers now as well. So we're getting into real estate. Like if we as landscape architects can work with developers on an early stage, we can plan very well and we can avoid a lot of stupid mistakes that are being made in the construction industry, like soil destruction, using chemicals. If you look at homeowner associations, they use so much chemicals and they are actually destroying communities on a
Oh
health
yeah, this is in
basis.
my condo. Every other day I have to sweep dead bugs off my patio because it sprays so many pesticides.
Yeah, exactly. That's ridiculous. It doesn't have to be like that. We need to create a balanced ecosystem,
Meanwhile, the
even
deer, mind you, are eating the grass, the same grass the deer are eating. So yeah, it's tragic. I feel bad for the deer.
no, yeah, that's true. You shouldn't be most of the grass in those home owner associations or communities. You don't want to be sitting in that grass. It's full of chemicals. And the crazy thing is that it's not needed. There's ways to do it without the chemicals and make it far more budget friendly for the associations and for
So
the
that's where
renters.
you start to butt heads with people because they're used to the simple. It's spray with pesticides for the weeds, like you came home when you were a kid and your garden was overgrown with weeds. Most people like,
Mm.
oh, we need something for the weeds, and then we need something for the bugs so they don't eat your blueberries. And then how do you you've done well as an entrepreneur at attracting people that not only get it, they have the budgets and the mindset that yeah, I'll pay for this. How did you manage to keep that mindset and not get pulled into the undertow of the negativity of the other side of the coin?
As- I love this question, Daniel. And honestly, I'll be very careful how I approach certain people. So some people they already understand a lot of ecology and they're open-minded to it, which is great because then not only can I change their backyard, I can also educate them on um, eco-friendly gardening, which is better for their budget, better for their health. Like I have a long list of benefits of doing it in such way. But if people are more like, hey, I just want a beautiful luxury garden, I don't really care about chemicals, yes or no, or they're not so educated on it, I still work with them, and this is quite funny. I just don't talk about it as much, but we still get the results because we base everything on nature. So sometimes I'm like kind of sneakingly putting in eco
Ah.
principles because the end result is way better. So even my clients that don't give a damn about chemicals or not, they still get a better result and they're extremely happy. So, and we don't have to talk about eco-friendly gardens. So it's kind of like I give them what they want, which is a beautiful garden.
One day they ask you, so Matthew, Can you explain how did you do this? It looks so great. And do you really want to know?
Exactly, and that's how we transform them. Then if they haven't really thought much about it, or they think like there's a whole paradigm, like everything that's eco is expensive and it doesn't work, or there's that whole paradigm, and many people are in that paradigm. Again, nothing wrong with it. I'm not here to judge anybody, but if I can show you with the results that it's better,
Hmm.
then exactly what you explained happens. Now clients that couldn't care less, they do ask me like, hey, I think my garden looks better than my neighbor, and we're not really doing some that much in our garden. How did it come? And then we can start a conversation, and then we kind of convert them into eco gardeners, or just by nature they're like, shit, I never thought about it. It was way better.
Lack of knowledge mostly because when you don't know the answer and your neighbor goes, I use chemicals. You go, oh, okay, what chemicals? You don't know who to ask for help. That's probably why what your
Yes.
books and stuff have been successful.
Exactly. So, to a certain degree, awareness is important, but at the same time, I encourage people, if you have an idea and you know you want to do it in a certain way, don't necessarily advertise it in the way you're doing. Just talk about the results. Talk about that's what I learned from worked with a lot of mentors and coaches. When you're doing business and advertising, don't talk about how you do things. Talk about what the result of your work is. And
So go back, yeah,
in my case, it's just more beautiful, more luxurious gardens, depending on what type of client is in front of me.
the pictures on your website of the houses are beautiful with the lawns and the bushes and the trees and the flowers and everything. That's really well done. But
Thank
so
you.
tell me, going back in the past, you came back from this big trip and you were sick for a while. So I like the way you put the mosquito that bit you was the blessing. The mosquito who loved you're like, why? I love you, nature. Why did you bite me? Because they're trying to do you a favor.
Yeah, exactly.
They're trying to do them and you a favor, nature and you. How, when you got back and recovered, how'd you find your first client?
Good question. And nobody has ever asked me that.
Do you like the first time you're like, I can make money off this doing what I came back to do?
Yes, uh, I was back in Belgium, and it was yeah, it was friends of my parents. They knew what I had done. They knew that I worked in Germany. Um, they either reached out to me. Yeah, they reached out to me exactly. And then we got started. And also on our own family farm. At that time, my brother was already going through a transition to making our farm from an industrial farm to a ecological, sustainable, regenerative, whatever you want to call it, but just actually a farm that's more profitable on the long term. That's again like that's what we're aiming for. Not just we're not being ecological because it's for the sake of it or because it's ethical, which is definitely a good reason to do it. But if you want to sustain or excel at it, it has to be financially viable as well. So that's what we did. And so we transformed our farm. Like when my dad started out, he was 17, and back then, this was in the 80s. That was like there was even a lot of crisis on health, like a lot of diseases on farms, and there was like a cow disease happening then as well. So it was a whole other world in the 80s. So my father mostly wanted to hide his farm. That's like nobody has to come to our farm. We don't want visitors because he's producing for the world market, and so it's he doesn't see his customers. So he just like kind of blocked everything away.
Hmm.
And then I'm the crazy son who comes and say like we have to completely open our doors, change everything. And over the course of the last 7 years, because we started before or while I was traveling, it's now become like a farm with beautiful gardens. We have a visitor center. We have a field kitchen. So a lot of companies come for team building. We sell products locally. We have an online web shop. So the farm is really becoming like a beacon of showing the world how you can produce healthy food and still thrive as a business.
For people listening, let's start with the average homeowner just has a backyard, bigger, like
Yeah.
could be 5 acres or just an apartment, residential. And then tell me about the big farms. for someone with a reasonable backyard or just a plot like you had when you were a child,
Mhm.
when we talk about, attract pollinators like the bees and restore the soil and manage the water naturally so you conserve it and whatnot. What does someone do? I suppose it depends on what climate you're in, right?
Yes, that's a good question. And I think it's a good time because you asked me to tie it into my book. We can bring in my book here.
12 laws. Okay, bring it in.
Yeah, the 12 universal laws come in very handy because what I did throughout my life, and I think that happened when I was 5 years old, and it's just I observed a lot nature and I started to understand nature. And what I figured out is when you understand how nature works, you can use that knowledge to your own advantage to become a better backyard gardener. Because when you like, there's certain laws by which nature governs. So you can do two things. Either you work against those laws, which is using chemicals, tilling the soil, spraying, doing high maintenance gardens, using plants that are not actually used for your climate. That's kind of like, we could call that industrial, no, not really industrial, but let's call it conventional gardening, which is often working against nature. And that's very high, that's very costly. You have to do a lot of work in it. Whereas if you start to work with nature, like if you look into nature, there's no maintenance. You go in a forest or a natural prairie landscape, it's all self-maintained. And I'm not saying that a completely self-maintained, like a garden, still needs some work. But if we can find a balance that leans more towards a natural system and understand how nature works, then we can do the same. So now back to my book, 12 Universal Laws, to give you like one, there's 12 laws, right? And they're universal laws. They apply to everything in life. So that's why something that applies to our personal life also applies to nature. And one of the laws is, for example, the law of attraction and the law of vibration. Those are two laws that are in my book, and they're quite interlinked. The law of attraction is what you said about pollinators. We want to attract pollinators for our flowers, and we want to attract beneficial insects because beneficial insects, they will eat the bad insects, like they will kill ants or it's not, and it's also not so much that there's good and bad insects. It doesn't actually exist. Every insect comes for a certain reason, but we're trying to find a balance. So if we look at plants, this is related to the law of vibration or the law of frequency, is that when plants are healthy, they vibrate at a higher frequency and they can communicate with insects. So when plants are at a higher frequency, and the plant is just in its growing cycle and it's growing very healthy, then it will give signals to insects like, hey, I'm very healthy. I have a good um, system to protect myself. If you want and you come and eat my leaves, I'm going to send poison into the leaves and that will make you very sick or you'll die from it. That's kind of the signal that healthy plants give to insects, at least to insects that would need to feed on them, that need the leaves to eat them. And then when the plant goes into flowering, it will send signals, and also the color obviously is that's why flowers are so colorful, is to attract the insects. Then they will if they're healthy, they're able to do that very well. Now on the other side, when plants are unhealthy, they will vibrate at a lower frequency. Just like humans, we also vibrate at a certain frequency, and if we're sick, we vibrate lower. In fact, if we die, our frequency stops, right? Our heartbeat is like, there's no more frequency. And that's the same with plants. So as plants vibrate on a lower frequency when they're getting sick or they're not healthy, that sends out signals to insects like, hey, this plant is gonna die. We might as well use it and recycle it. So then all the insects will go and eat that plant. And I've seen that firsthand in nature, actually in the Amazon rainforest. I was in the middle of the forest walking with our guide, and all of a sudden we find a huge track of ants. And these are like pretty big ants, and they're all carrying big chunks of leaves on their back. And it's almost like a green stream in the forest. It was
Hmm.
pretty big. So we followed the track to find like what are they carrying. And in the middle of the forest there was just one tree that was completely being stripped down, and there was trees around it that were not being eaten at all. So that's a perfect example that that tree was either sick or it's generally at the end of its life. Like there's also nothing necessarily wrong with sick plants. It's also a natural cycle. But obviously, when you're a garden, you don't want to grow sick plants. You want healthy plants, right? So that when you grow healthy plants, they vibrate higher and you won't have to spray at all because they're sending the signals to the insect like, hey, don't touch me.
So that's law number one, and we won't go through all 12, and you have the book on 12. And you apply that towards a big farm then too, as well as
Yes,
the backyard.
exactly. Because it's all the same. Our natural world, if it's your small backyard or a 500-acre farm or even bigger, that laws apply to both because
You
there's no
probably have an
difference.
easier sell on this because you have the experience of running a big farm. It sounds like your family farm.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Well, it's still not that easy, but we're working on it, and I'm working here on the Azores with a lot of local farmers, and we're looking to do land acquisition with investors because a lot of farms are being sold by farmers that don't have next generation. So we have to jump in to make sure that the land doesn't get in the hands of people that might have not so good intentions. So, but that, yeah, again, that's another story. And just to go back to like people might, or you might be asking, I don't know if it's a legit question, but you might be asking that this sounds all good, but how do you actually create healthy plants, right? I don't know if you want to talk more about that, because it's pretty much
I kind of
the
assumed
essence.
like if you take care of it, it'll take care of you, like you were describing, and
Hmm.
attract healthy insects and stuff. I mean, I have to water. I mean, have to water stuff properly.
Yes. Well, not necessarily.
No?
Watering gardens is again, if you look in nature, there's no watering. It's rainfall. And even if you're in harsh climates, you have to make sure that your plants can sustain longer periods of drought. And so the one, Daniel, what do you think is the one most important way that we could make sure that we don't have to water our garden and that the
Well, you
plants
don't
are healthy?
plant an evergreen tree in the middle of the desert. You
Yes.
know, something that works well in the snow at, 10,000 feet. You don't plant it at sea level on the beach.
No, exactly.
You know, California, right? Hollywood, San Diego, uh, Laguna Beach, beautiful places. Most people don't realize those would be sand dunes if it wasn't for stealing the water up northern California and sending it down in the canal. The plants love the sunlight and the beautiful weather. They can't live there without the fresh water from somewhere else.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, there's also natural systems that there's ways to at least drastically reduce the amount of watering that you have to do. And the main way to do that is to fix your soil. Because for some reason, people always look up above ground, like, oh, what's wrong with my plant? He's not doing well. But like that's also another law in my book. It's the law of duality. Everything comes in parts, North Pole, South
For
Pole.
example, if there was clay underneath the topsoil to hold the water naturally, or some other way you could build it before you put the plant in there that really doesn't belong here as well, it's going to have a hard time. Let's help it out. Something like that.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit more complex than that, but I'll try to explain it as simple as possible. So, and again, that's where when we look into nature, like Einstein said, look deep into nature and you will understand everything better. So if we again look into nature, when you have a healthy biodiverse ecosystem, the main thing that is keeping it healthy is the soil. And it's not that it's a specific type of soil. It can be sand, it can be clay, but it's just the condition of the soil is so good. And how do you get a really good condition of the soil? It's the microorganisms. So if we look at microorganisms are pretty much the number one thing that allow us to have a beautiful life on this planet.
You
We
mean the
don't see them
bacteria, the not bad bacteria, and amoebas and protozoas and
exactly.
things like
Yes.
that.
that's the key to a healthy soil, and it's also the key to our personal health is that we have a healthy gut and a healthy. People are now talking more about it in holistic health. You need to have a
The
healthy.
yeast and the fungi and
Yes,
microorganisms, yeah.
yes. So a healthy gut is the way to a healthy life.
Which in the soil, that would be the fungi, the molds breaking stuff down, as well as then lichen comes to mind. Like you see the colored lichen on rocks, which is fascinating because I think it's a mold. It couldn't live there, eat the rock, except there's some other organism that's symbiotic relationship between the two. They're helping each other out, lichen.
Oh yeah,
I
lichen.
don't
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
exactly how it's working, but the two organisms working together.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's exactly it. So then, um, my like it's very complex system, and they call this the food soil web. It's not just only fungi or only bacteria. It's like it's crazy diverse. Like even they found out that 1 teaspoon of healthy soil, or only healthy soil, has more microorganisms than there are people on the whole planet. Like that's just how complex it is, and it's both in variety and amount. It's vast. Like, and we're only starting to scratch the surface of understanding how these healthy soils actually function. And one of the latest research that was from 2023 or 24, I'm not sure, but very recent, since we're in 2025, is that the microorganisms communicate with plants. So
Hmm.
for plants to grow well, they need nutrients, right? So they need water, of course. They also need nutrients. And if a plant grows and its roots go down, if there wouldn't be microorganisms, it wouldn't be able to absorb the nutrients as good. Because what do microorganisms do? They find all types of nutrients. They will eat it. They will digest it. Oftentimes, they are also being eaten by other microorganisms, and then there's a whole food chain. But eventually, the highest microorganism or the microorganism that is the highest on the food chain will have an interaction with the roots, with the mycorrhizae, which now we're getting very technical, but pretty much the plant will give signals to the microorganisms that it needs certain minerals at certain times of the year because plants need a variety of different nutrients at different times of the year. For example, in springtime, plants need to grow really fast because it was cold, it was winter. They need to like boom. What is the one most important nutrient to grow fast is nitrogen. So now plants are sending signals. Hey, microorganisms, go find me uh, nitrogen, and then the microorganisms will get it. They transform it slightly, and they make it what they call bioavailable. Because it's one thing to have nutrients in your soul, but if they're not bioavailable, you can't do anything with it. And that's why in our personal health, if we even eat healthy salads and healthy food and you're completely eating healthy, but if you wouldn't have microorganisms in your gut, you wouldn't be able to absorb the nutrients as good. You would still get some of it, but not the full spectrum. So then when this
Why do the microorganisms want to listen to the plant? Because what's the plant doing for them?
Yes, very good question, and I love this question because that means you're getting it. Is that they give them something that they can't find anywhere else. And now, if we, I don't know if you had biology in school, but we learned in school that how do you remember learning about photosynthesis?
That's light, how plants make food out of light and carbon
Yes,
or water or something like that. They don't need to eat food. Well,
no,
they eat
exactly.
food, they make it with light.
They mostly make it with light. And one thing that they also produce when they're growing is sugar, glucose.
Hmm.
Now we think that sugar is a bad thing in health, but we still need sugar in our lives. It's
Oh, you
also a
mean in the
wrong.
roots? They're secreting the sugar through this.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So the microorganisms will come to the roots with a certain mineral, and it will come to like a kind
Oh,
of a
that makes
gate.
perfect sense then. That's like a free food. It's like I got to feed the refrigerator and then it'll feed me back.
Yes.
or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a beautiful, I have to write that down. That's a beautiful
I didn't
metaphor.
know
Like,
that plants literally excreted. I didn't think they, only thought they took up water with their roots, period. I didn't know they put anything back out underground.
oh yeah, they actually, because that's the next beautiful thing about if you keep doing gardening on this in this way, what will happen is that the plants will now also start storing more carbon dioxide in the soil. So there's carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The plants, it's kind of their oxygen. We need oxygen to live. They need carbon dioxide to live, and they will actually store the carbon dioxide in the form of carbon in the soil, in the roots, but they also make packets in the soil. So yeah, that's a really beautiful thing because if you garden regeneratively, ecologically, you're now also contributing in sequestering carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And that's why regenerative farming on a bigger scale is also really important because now we can sequester vast amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So
In terms of the roots thing and the microorganisms, I know what it says, use a chemical, a pesticide, a herbicide. It's not selective, so it seems there'd be a problem. You think you're killing one bug, and you don't know how many other billions of the other organisms, different types, like you said, are there. And
yes,
then, like with your body, you kill the good stuff, not just the bad
exactly.
stuff.
Yes, fully agree, and that's exactly how it works. So that's why, in a way, these chemicals to kill bugs or fix a disease in a plant, it sounds like a good idea, and in fact, it is, but it's only a short-term fix. You will get rid of the bugs, but as the chemicals go into the soil, it will also either at least disturb the all the interactions and the symbiosis between the microorganisms, which is now bad news because the beautiful system of the interaction of the plants giving sugar and minerals being exchanged, that system starts to collapse because of the chemicals. And nature is very robust. It can always recover from it. But obviously, if you keep adding chemicals year after year, it's kind of like, uh, yeah, it's a system that is,
Yeah, then you're really upside down. There's no good organisms left, kind of like your body. You take too many
yep.
antibiotics. You got to eat the yogurt then. It's the only way. Eat the yogurt.
Even a lot of the food that is in the supermarkets is full of chemicals because farmers are spraying chemicals and don't blame farmers because my dad and my brother are farmers, but it's not a good thing because it destroys your gut. And people will buy cheap food that's sprayed with chemicals, even if it's a beautiful salad, but they won't be like this is why the knowledge is so important that when people start to realize, hey, that salad that I'm eating that looks good and it makes me think that I'm healthy, well, it's going to destroy my gut health because it's full of chemicals. Can I just pay maybe double the amount than that industrial conventional salad and buy it from an organic regenerative farmer and eat something that will actually boost my health and not destroy it? So that's a paradigm shift that's going to happen.
It's a deeper economical question. Well, then it'll cost more. Then there won't be as much food, but then we won't have to eat as much and we won't be sick. So we won't be spending money on medical bills.
Yeah.
We'll make it up on the back end with the health care that we save.
Oh, easily, easily.
We got to start someplace. What we tell people who are spraying, say let's say my condominium, we're spraying because we got this two weeds in the go out and pick them. I pick them myself. How do you get people started on this who are a little more closed-minded?
Yeah. Good question.
The easy
So
solution, like give them, you can have the philosophical, you'll feel better, your soil will be better, the planet will. In the meantime, I'm too lazy to pick weeds.
yes. So the way to solve that is to get to the core problem of why there's even weeds in your lawn or in your garden. And it's because, and that's another thing that I explain in depth in my book, is that every weed comes for a certain reason. And this is how nature works. So Mother Nature has invented a genius system that whenever there's a soil disruption or in our case now it's because of chemicals which weren't around, but when we use chemicals, it disturbs the soil. There's like something is wrong. And in nature, that naturally that also occurs, and this will be after a wildfire or a landslide or whatever natural disaster that can happen. You completely eradicate the soil, and the number one thing that Mother Nature has invented to start restoring the health of the soil, so then from a disturbed soil, it can go back to a forest in this can take up to 400 or 500 years or more. But to start that process of regeneration, Mother Nature brings in the weeds because what weeds do, and they're just annuals. That weeds is a nasty word for annuals. The annuals restructure the soil. They will add roots in them. They often the weeds like dandelions, for example, which is dandelion. It means tooth of lion, which is a very strong plant. It's also a very medicinal plant. It has a very strong deep taproot, and it decompacts the soil. So we are trying to decompact the soils with machines. Well, dandelions are doing it for us. And a dandelion will keep coming back to that same location until the problem of compaction is solved. So you can either just wait and let the weeds do its thing, which that could be an extreme naturalistic approach, and some people are doing it, but that can be also time consuming. So if we want to solve the problem of weeds in our garden, we have to solve the exact problem that weed is telling us. This I'm often saying that in my course, like weeds are communicating with us because they tell us the condition of the soil, and this is called bioindicator plants.
Mhm.
So when you see
Okay.
dandelions in your grass, you know you have a compaction problem. So how can you solve it now? Get out and use a certain tool, which there's a lot of shitty tools in the garden industry. Most of them don't work. But one of the most important ones, because compaction is a big issue in gardens, is to use a garden, what they call a garden fork. So now when you see dandelions or weeds in your lawn, go out with the garden tool and start decompacting the soil, and don't turn the soil around, because if you turn the soil around, you're going back to square zero and you'll have more
These are
weeds.
usually lawns. In the US here, they're usually the beautiful lawns. People don't like the yellow dandelion poking up. So they're probably compact because they're,
Yeah, they're driving over with machines and they're adding chemicals, which, yeah, the chemicals disturb the microorganisms. When the microorganisms die, the plants are weaker, the soil naturally doesn't function as well, and it starts to compact. So it's just a normal.
the myth was I heard that my grandmother used to, back in the day, they'd pick dandelions for salad. They'd eat
Oh
this.
yeah,
I'm
it's
like, what?
extremely healthy. And
They
this is
were
the
trying to
cool
kill
thing.
them and they'd eat them.
Yeah, that's the wild thing, because dandelions have that extreme deep taproot, right? So one thing they solve is the problem of compaction, but a second thing they can solve is the lack of minerals in the topsoil. So the root of a dandelion can go up to 2 meters in depth, which is about 15 feet, if I'm not, no, that might be a bit too much.
I like to pull them. I like to pull them by hand. Oh, they're probably breaking off because I might get 6 inches or
Oh yeah, and they would go right back. They grow right back because it had
how deep?
up to 8 feet.
Wow.
So, and what they do is they will find minerals in the depth of the soil, because there's always minerals. They're just not available on the top layer, and they will bring the minerals up through their root system, and then the leaves and the flower that grows, it'll die off in the winter, and then that decomposes, and then it creates more minerals, or it adds more minerals to the soil.
Oh. What explains two things. One, why it comes back, because I'm not digging. Nobody with the little st poker, they think it's helping them, is going down 8 feet, even by hand. And two, why the chemicals are just not helping you out. You're not
No.
allowing it to finish its job.
Yes. And then what I also do to speed up the process of, if you don't like dandelions in your lawn, use the garden fork and add a small amount of high quality compost, because a high quality compost has a little bit of minerals, which is a good Kickstarter, but most importantly, it has huge amounts of microorganisms. So if you add that to the location where there's an issue with your lawn, it's kind of like
Oh,
eating
okay.
your yogurt, or eating what people are, it's now becoming very popular, is the probiotics. So I say microorganisms is like the probiotics for our personal health. So then the as you add the microorganisms, the soil will start to sort out itself faster, and the dandelion will just disappear. I even say to people, don't even bother pulling out the weeds. Just decompact the soil, add some minerals, and if it's a lawn, just keep mowing it, and you'll see by the next year or the next 2 years, the problem will be solved. So, and in the meantime, you can enjoy a beautiful yellow flower in your grass. Why not?
And you can sit in the lawn, and your pets, your dog can roll in the grass and not be rolling in all the
Yes, and your
pesticide.
kids, because now in
Yeah.
this is the main reason why I'm so active and I'm a huge advocate of this is because nowadays we are building high-rise buildings for children with cancer. Like, what the hell's gone wrong with the world if we have to do that? Like, this should not be a thing. Like, Texas has just built a huge high-rise for only to treat blood cancer in kids. It's
Mm.
like, what? How is it? What's happened to the world that people that just come into our world are already starting to get sick and die? It's because of all those chemicals that are in our environment, in our food system, in our gardens. So we have to stop that. It just doesn't make any sense.
I had the picture when you said that of at least maybe they go down and every big city has a park, even if it's a small park. But the kids can't even go down there and get some relief because the city's spraying it to keep the dandelions down, and the sick kids are just, it's not helping them go lay on the grass.
No, it's getting worse. Some cities are stepping up. Some cities around the world are like, this does make sense. The European Union is forbidding a lot of the chemicals already. So there's some good movements, but we can't let other countries like the US slip away.
We have integrated pest management, IPM,
Hmm.
which some big cities, Portland comes to mind, uh, a few cities know about. Most people don't on integrated pest management, which is back circling back to you said, find the pest, figure out how to get rid of it, only apply the chemicals if you need to.
Yeah, or don't apply the chemicals because it's just a quick fix. Rather let the plants die and fix the soil or fix the root cause, which will always be related to the health of the soil, and then start replanting or setting up new structures. Like, I see a lot of landscaping companies, they're planting quickly because there's pressure from deadlines and all those stuff, and they just chuck plants in the ground really quickly, and that's just not the way it's meant to be done.
They have a different business model than you.
Yeah.
They like being outside. I'm just making this up if I'm landscape, typical landscape. Beats working in the office on the computer, can make some money, and now they're competing on the to, do it the cheapest, fastest for a developer.
Hmm. Yeah. Which on a long term is more expensive because
And they're
the
not going to be
homeowners.
happy because they're not going to feel like they're doing their thing.
No. And if they keep doing it, they might have some lawsuits on their asses because it's really becoming like now if you keep using actively chemicals and the research is showing that it's actually bad for homeowners and for the people in your community, if you keep doing it, you might end up paying a very big fine for a lawsuit.
Where do we find out about more about you and your 12 laws of nature and your books and your consulting if people want to get a hold of you?
Yes. So thank you for asking that. So you can, if you want to start out with learning more about this, I encourage you like to read my book, and you can find it on Amazon. So just go on Google or on Amazon, 12 Universal Laws of Nature. You can also find my website, 12lawsofnature.com. You'll find some more bonuses there and some more information. If you say like I want to get inspired more and see what these ecological regenerative gardens look like, you can follow me on Instagram, which is under my personal name, Matthieu Mehuys. And also there,
All this will be in the show notes.
thank you, Daniel. And then if you feel like, yeah, I find this all amazing, and I get the point, but I don't have time because I'm running a business and I have a family, then you can also reach out to us. And I also have another Instagram account with like projects that we're doing for clients, which is more high-end work. then you can also find our company there, Paulonia. And if you feel like, oh, I do have a little bit of spare time, you don't need huge amounts. That's a big misconception. People think like when I get into gardening myself and I want to do it yourself DIY, then I'm like a prisoner of my garden and I can't go on holidays and I have to water every night when I come home from work. Well, that's if you do it the conventional way, but if you follow my approach, then it doesn't have to be like that. Like I've
Hmm.
done gardens for people. They only need like half an hour of work every week. And this is on average. So it can be that you don't have to work at all for several weeks. And then maybe in the weekend you work for 4 hours. And you actually enjoy it because it's an amazing thing and it makes you healthier.
It reminds me of Tim Ferriss's book, the 4-day work week or something like that for gardening.
Yeah, I love that. The 4 hour,
Four
I should
hour
write that book. The 4 hour garden more. Yeah, yeah, it's something to play with that. I love that. I'd have to call Tim Ferriss and co-write it with him.
Is there something I haven't asked you that you feel is really important?
No, I don't think so. So I was just saying if people feel the need to like get their hands dirty themselves and not get overwhelmed and not make a ton of mistakes and know how to do it the right way, then they can find more information about my masterclass on the website, which is www.gardenofyourdreams.com. And there you can find a free training, 30 minutes training to test it out. And if you like it there, you can book a meeting with me and we can schedule a yeah, a strategy call to see if this masterclass is something for you.
Oh, what are you growing on the family farm right now? What do you grow?
Oh, so our farm is becoming quite diverse. So Uh, at the moment, or one of the biggest innovations we've done in the last 7 years is that we added what they call mobile hen houses. So it's or a chicken tractor. It's also known in the US. So it's basically like a stable that you can move around like a mobile home, and we move the chicken around on fresh pastures, and that gives.
Like you open the doors and then just leave the wagon there until they come back at night, kind of like the cows come home or something like that, move them again.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way. Uh,
Cows or cattle. They do
yes.
cattle.
Yes, so we also do that with cattle, more grazing them in a holistic or rotational grazing system. We're doing that in a nature reserve in Belgium. And then we also, oh yeah,
Your dad
go
probably,
ahead.
or your family might not be into it, but it seems like I'd be interested. Do you give tours on the family farm in terms of how you did this on a big farm?
Oh yeah, totally. So that was part of the mission of the farm to open its doors so people can understand how this food is produced. So my brother is doing a ton of tours almost on a weekly basis and companies they can do team building, which is cool because if we would have our doors open all the time, it's you still have to do farming, right? So we only open our doors like on specific dates or if people want to build they want to do a team building. Like most companies, I don't know, they hire a casino or something. They spend stupid money on things that most people don't need. Why not go and learn about food and being in a beautiful environment and take home some extremely fresh and healthy food and that might shift the way your team operates.
It would shift your thinking for sure because it's long term and it's personal. Like I wish I could stick around and eat that, or well, I can't. So when I go home, I'll do that. I'll do it myself, grow my own garden, eat it myself. Maybe at the office, we'll have a garden outside the office. So it's something you could take home a little more
Yes.
tangibly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually promoting that a lot. I'm also active on LinkedIn where I will talk more about that. Like I have this vision that corporate companies, they could set up a community garden with their team. And like if, instead of going on team buildings offsite that cost like some companies spend so much money on flying their people to some location to kind of be in an amazing place, which is pretty cool. But like, why not invest that money in creating a beautiful environment for your people so year round they can enjoy it, or at least in the growing season, or even year round if we add a small greenhouse. And
It seems like it'd be one good for people trying to do innovation and problem solving too.
oh yeah, totally, because that was part of my vision. Like you have all these big corporate companies, and then I would love for people to voluntarily work in the garden and they can take away some of the vegetables. But now imagine that someone who is in, let's say, a lower position in the company all of a sudden is working with the CEO in doing the maintenance, getting their hands dirty. Now they can also talk about like, oh, tell me what's on your mind or what's happening on your side of the company. And who knows what this can bring for the company. Like, oh, I never thought about that. Can we change the company? Like this connection in growing food
Like
together can
instead of
create
going
some,
playing a round of golf that not everybody's into, or instead of making it a competitive game, let's grow a garden instead.
yeah, exactly. And it will produce healthy food for the even for the canteen. The research I put together a whole paper or a post on LinkedIn about the whole research, like what it could bring for a company in improving profitability, also retention of people that work for you, because now something is happening, what's called the war on talent. Like as the population is actually, or the working population is decreasing and companies need more and more people, even with the AI revolution, more and more jobs will be needed. It's going to be different types of jobs, but so companies are pretty much fighting amongst each other to hire people. And now people have also come used to working in their home officing. They're like, oh, I like the comfort of my home. So now if you want people to come actually to your office, you'll have to do something more than just putting up a ping pong table and making a coffee corner, which is also cool. But now imagine that people are like, oh, I work for this company and we're doing tech. And in the lunch break, we all work together in the garden, or we have this beautiful lush garden in our lunch break. We can pick our own salads, and we enjoy the environment.
When I was an engineer and I was the only one, I would just be, we're not getting anywhere. I'm frustrated. I've been in this meeting like, for 3 hours for the third day in a row. I just leave. Maybe at lunch, go to the city park. If I had that at work, rather than having it scheduled, like now we're all gonna go to the garden. Like I would just find myself on break there on my own. Like Einstein working in the garden where the thought comes to
Yeah.
comes to you in the shower. Have another uh place to go for creative when you're creatively blocked and just need a break from something.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's totally. I fully agree with that. I think the grandmother of my cousin, so she wasn't my on my side of the family, it doesn't matter, but she said, that was my cousin who said it on her funeral. He said like, when you have problems in your life, go and work in the garden and you'll find your answers. Like, and
Nice.
this is what most people say. Like when you actually do some stuff in the garden, you'll get new ideas, you come up with new stuff. And if you can't do that, then at least go out in nature and enjoy nature.
Hmm. Thanks so much, Matthew. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
Have a great day and good luck with your garden. And where are you again right now?
In the Azores, which is an archipelago of 9 islands in pretty much in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's an autonomous region of Portugal.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I'm sure you're making it even better.
Oh yeah, that's the goal. That's what we're working on. Creating farms of Eden.
Awesome. Well, good luck with everything. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Have a good day.